Brian McFadden has finally opened up about the defining moments of his past that shaped not only his career but also his personal life, most notably his shocking departure from Westlife in 2004. His decision to leave the band at the peak of its international fame is still remembered as one of the most unexpected exits in music history. For years, fans and even his bandmates were left wondering why he chose to walk away from such a hugely successful group when they were dominating the global charts. In a candid conversation on his former bandmate Nicky Byrne's newly launched podcast, Brian finally provided an unfiltered explanation of the reasons behind his departure, giving fans an intimate look at the emotional and mental challenges he was grappling with at the time. Brian McFadden's appearance on Nicky Byrne HQ, the podcast helmed by his longtime friend and Westlife co-star, marked a significant moment not only for Westlife fans but also for pop culture followers who have tracked Brian's career trajectory over the past 2 decades. For the first time in nearly 20 years, Brian was able to sit down with Nicky and reflect on some of the most pivotal decisions of his life, including the fateful choice to part ways with the boy band that had made him a household name. The two former bandmates laughed and joked, but they didn't shy away from addressing the difficult questions, particularly the one that had lingered for so long: why did Brian leave Westlife? Brian wasted no time getting straight to the heart of the matter, admitting that his decision to leave the group in 2004 was impulsive and, by his own admission, selfish. "I look back now and I can see that as a 24-year-old, I made a very selfish decision because obviously I didn't take the 4 of you into consideration," Brian said, referring to his bandmates Nicky, Shane Fallon, Mark Feehily, and Kian Egan. It was clear from the conversation that Brian still holds a lot of respect for his former bandmates, and he acknowledged that his abrupt exit had a major impact on them both professionally and personally. At the time of Brian's departure, Westlife was at the height of their fame, having sold millions of albums worldwide and established themselves as one of the biggest boy bands of the early 2000s. Their slick harmonies and heartthrob status had captured the hearts of fans across the globe, and their music was constantly topping the charts. It seemed like nothing could stop Westlife from continuing their meteoric rise, but when Brian suddenly announced he was leaving the group, it sent shockwaves through the music world. Fans were left reeling, and the media was abuzz with speculation about the reasons behind his decision. During the podcast, Brian explained that his departure wasn't due to any fallout with the band or dissatisfaction with the music. Rather, it was a deeply personal decision born out of his own struggles at the time. "Where my head was at the time, I just needed to sort my own head and life out," Brian revealed, reflecting on the emotional and mental toll that fame had taken on him. "That was 20 years ago. I'm 44 now, and the way I think is so different," he added, emphasizing that he has gained a lot of perspective since those days. Brian went on to share that while he now recognizes how his decision may have affected the rest of the band, at the time he was too overwhelmed by his own internal battles to fully understand the repercussions. "If I could go back now, I probably would have spoken more to you about it," he said to Nicky, referring to his sudden decision to leave the group. "But I don't think my decision would have changed, just because of where my headspace was at the time," he admitted. His words were reflective and filled with the wisdom that comes with age, but they also underscored how isolated and lost he felt during that period. The pair reminisced about their younger days, with Nicky poking fun at Brian's notorious rambunctious behavior, which earned him a reputation as the more rebellious member of Westlife. Brian, in turn, laughed about his quick wit and sharp tongue, traits that became defining elements of his personality in the public eye. "I get my quick tongue from my mom," Brian quipped, explaining that he inherited his ability to fire back with snappy retorts from his mother. But underneath the humor, Brian also acknowledged that his sharpness was often a defense mechanism. Digging deeper, Brian opened up about the origins of his temper, which he said stemmed from being bullied during his school years. "I was badly teased in school," he said, recounting how he was frequently picked on, which led him to develop a reflexive tendency to attack others before they could hurt him. "My first reaction to everyone was always to find a flaw in someone before they say something to me," he explained, offering a rare glimpse into the vulnerability that lay behind his often tough exterior. As Brian transitioned into adulthood, this mentality followed him, and it became particularly visible during his infamous social media spats. With the rise of platforms like Twitter, Brian became known for his quick temper online, where he often got into heated exchanges with both fans and critics alike. Reflecting on this period, Brian admitted that part of the allure of social media was the newfound power it gave him to fight back against the media. "For so long, people would talk about us in the press, and we never had a voice," he said. "And then all of a sudden, Twitter gave us the power that the journalists had, and it felt so satisfying to have that power in your hands," he acknowledged. "I loved it," though he also recognized that it led to many controversial moments over the years. Despite his rocky past with social media and the often negative attention it brought him, Brian emphasized that he now feels at peace with where he stands in relation to his former bandmates. He made it clear during the podcast that there is no lingering animosity between him and the rest of Westlife, and he expressed understanding of why there may have been mixed feelings toward him when he first left the group. "I've got no bad blood," Brian said, clarifying that he harbors no ill will towards Shane, Markian, or Nikki. "I can understand why there would be feelings towards me," he admitted, alluding to the emotional impact his decision had on the group, but he reiterated that time has healed those wounds. As the conversation wrapped up, it was evident that both Brian and Nikki had grown a lot since their Westlife days, and their friendship had endured despite the ups and downs. The podcast provided fans with a rare and intimate glimpse into Brian's mind, allowing them to understand the complexity of his journey and the challenges he faced as a young man navigating fame, personal turmoil, and public scrutiny. Nikki Byrne HQ, the podcast that brought these long-awaited revelations to light, is scheduled to release weekly episodes across all major streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, and Google Play. Fans can expect more raw and honest conversations, not only from Brian but also from other guests, as Nikki delves into topics ranging from music to personal growth and everything in between. The podcast promises to offer listeners a behind-the-scenes look at the highs and lows of life in the spotlight, with plenty of laughter and heartwarming moments along the way.